One. Hello, hello.
Hi,
How we doing, Jamie?
we're doing well. How are you
We're
guys
doing
doing?
good. Great. Well,
Hey, Jamie.
listen, I just want to say hello to all of our RE Hustle fans and listeners out there. Today, we've got a really cool show. We've got some really neat people on here. I've got Jaymie Barette. We have known her for many, many, many moons, Chad and I. So we go way, way back, but also she's a licensed professional counselor. And I wanted to bring her on because she's also one of our past clients. And so there's a little bit of uniqueness to this conversation, and she's fairly new to our Charlotte area. So Jaymie, why don't you introduce yourself to everybody and kind of remind people and ourselves how we kind of met, Chad and I.
So, my name is Jaymie Barette. I'm a licensed professional counselor. Mario and I and Chad go way, way back to high school times. They were some of my very first friends when I moved to Pennsylvania for a little bit. Yeah, so that's a long time ago. And now we've been lucky enough to land in the same geographical location again at different points in our life.
Mm-hmm.
It was a long time, and Chad would remember that as he thought we as teenagers were stalking you, but I disagree with that statement.
I don't know that it was stalking. It was just typical, two teenage guys meet two new teenage girls in town, and of course, they're like the cool new thing. So we wanted to hang out.
The new thing. Yeah, no,
PG version.
What's that?
A PG version.
The PG version. No, you guys were so nice to us when we moved there. So,
Well, I still consider your mom my mom, so she's Ma.
She'll be excited to hear that.
Well, why don't you give us a little bit of what your transition was like moving from, New Jersey to this area, the big difference, because we have a lot of folks that transplant here from New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and that part of the states, those states coming into Charlotte. How was that transition for you, and how is it today? And I know some of it's kind of bumpy, but be as candid as possible for us.
Yeah, so coming from the Northeast, like right near New York City, it's very different here. Charlotte is a city, but to us, it felt so small. I mean, it's so nice. It's so like almost quaint in a weird way. I know probably people here wouldn't think that, but coming from New York City, like right next door, it's pretty busy. The transition was okay. I have 3 children, so really settling them in was our focus. Getting used to some of the distance between stores and restaurants and finding all of those type of things we're still working on. I mean, it's not even been a year.
Right.
Feels a little longer. And now, of course, with the global pandemic, everything is different for everybody. So we're still just hanging in, but we are loving the weather.
I bet. Have you talked to folks back home and what the weather is there right now, or what it's been like the last few weeks?
So last week was really rainy. Like everybody was like, oh, it's raining. I think this week is a little bit better. I haven't checked in today, but a little bit better for everybody today or last beginning of the week.
Yeah. Now, I know your husband, Al, he is probably the main reason. Is that true, that got you guys to think about coming to the Charlotte area due to his position and work?
Yeah. I just say it was the right question at the right time for him. And, we're just trying something new. We've always thought about what life could be like a little bit slower paced and all of that. So here we are.
Do you want to talk about a little bit about the housing size comparable in pricing from Jersey to what you have today? We don't have to talk about what you paid for your house, but more importantly, what you can get versus, because your house was roughly the same price, Jersey and here, but your square footage was significantly different. Is that correct?
Yeah. So you're going to ask me about a lot of numbers that I don't remember, but our house, I'm so bad at distances and things like that, but our house in New Jersey was very nice for our town, but it was probably everything in New Jersey is expensive, especially in Bergen County where we live. So our house was similarly priced, but older, needed a lot of updates. Here it's brand new, it's way bigger. Cool. Super nice.
Well, I think you're probably twice the size, since I know what house you live in. and I've also been in your old house. So I think you're about twice the size square footage wise, but you're right around the same price point. So it lets viewers to know, kind of get an idea coming from, not to mention the taxes, what you can save coming into our market from the Jersey market.
Yeah, it's so different in that way, for sure.
Yeah. Do you already feel that bonus from the tax perspective? Because since you did kind of stay in the same price point, do you feel not having to write those checks? Do you feel that, or is that something you haven't really kind of felt yet?
I don't really know the answer to that. I mean, I'm sure we feel it in some way, but
it's one of those things you just kind of get used to. Like, it's just, you take it as it is. Like, you're still paying taxes, so
yeah,
money's still going out.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the difference in salaries is something to talk about maybe too, from the north to the south. So like, while we maybe have a tax break, like cut or lower taxes, so to speak, like income is different too. So that is probably why I'm not like, oh my gosh, yeah, we feel like $13,000 extra in our pocket. There was this, a difference in income to come down here.
Oh, cool. That's a good point. I'm glad you said that. Now let's not get so serious, because I know that you're a huge sports fan, right? And we talk about sports nonstop. As you can see, Chad's background, he's sitting in the stadium right now with all the new fans that are going to be at all of our games post-COVID. But what type of sports do you follow? How is that with you in your life?
So anybody who watches this, who knows me, if I say anything other than I don't really like sports, it's going to call me out. So I'm just going to be totally honest. Not that I don't like them, but I don't really like them. They have a place in the world for many, many people. I totally get that. But on Sunday, like, it pains me, especially like football. I don't understand it. Don't even bother. I've almost given up. I don't know. It's just, it's not, like, I just can't sit inside staring at the TV watching everybody like move the ball 4 blades of grass and then
4 blades.
And basketball.
So Jaymie, we had a guest on a couple of weeks ago who was also not a sports fan, and she said that it was a really cool time for her because now she was younger than all of us, but her words were, now boys are paying more attention and listening to me. So obviously, you being married with Al, have you found that to be the case where, like, now he's doing a little bit more around the house or kind of bugging you more because
sorry, Al,
for him to watch?
Well, actually, I have to say I'm really lucky because he does more with us in general. Sports plays a backseat. Always, like, not always. I guess when we're in our like young 20s, it's like, let's go eat wings and watch TV in the bar or whatever. But like now it's like, there's a birthday party or the kids want to go outside. He's just like, okay, I'm outside with the kids. Like, I'll read it on ESPN or whatever later. So I'm lucky.
Good for Al.
Yeah. Well, as a licensed professional counselor, don't you ever have moments where someone has just got to have to talk about sports and you have to be able to talk through that? And you're also a mother of 2 boys.
No, I know. I wonder what, the plan for that was. Often, I'm like, I say it to my husband all the time. I say to Elle all the time, like, what do you think the plan was? Like, I'm as girly as they come, legitimately. Right. So I don't know. I'm learning how to like lizards recently, especially.
Oh, yes.
My boys love to chase them and hold them and like all sorts of stuff. And in therapy, do I have to talk about sports? Is that what you asked?
Well, yeah, I would assume it's got to come up with somebody at some point. No?
I mean,
no, never.
Not really. Not really. And therapy is very similar too. Like if I need to speak about it, I can. Therapy is not about if I like sports. Therapy is about like what you like about sports and why that's impacting you and why we're talking about it in therapy. It doesn't matter. I mean, I think that in general.
Wow. To see how she just turned that around on you, that's
good. Just not good. That's not nice.
but like truly, I actually think that's like one of the common things people struggle with is a point of comparison. Right. And like, it doesn't matter if Jaymie likes sports now, in therapy, not in therapy, next Sunday, when post-COVID is lifted, doesn't matter. Like you do you like your sports, watch them. Doesn't matter.
Well, let me ask you a question. What is the biggest positive that you've taken away from this pandemic, whether it be personal, family, professional? What is the biggest takeaway that you think has really impacted your life during COVID?
I think there's so many things.
Well, give me one good one.
Well, one thing I will say is, like, if you can't draw a line with a ruler, don't start handing out haircuts, because I did that.
What?
Yeah. I have like a real issue. Like, I don't know why, but it's very challenging for me to draw a straight line. And yet Al needed a quarantine haircut. And I was like, I'm here for it. Let's do it.
Oh, gosh.
So we started.
Before and after photos.
Yeah, see that she gets away with all this LPC stuff, so she doesn't visually put a lot out there on her social media, and that's not fair, because that would have been great sharing of Al right there.
I have some, but I don't know if he wants it blasted out there. I mean, he's a good sport about it, but let me tell you something. He now and Preston both are, what do they call them? Like buzzed cuts. So.
Oh, they got the bowl cuts.
No,
well,
no,
look at this. Look at that. I don't know if you can see it. I'm just letting it grow.
I'm doing like strict social distancing. Otherwise, I'd offer you a haircut, but it would take you back to high school. That's the kind of haircut they both have.
Well, we just did a closing. I posted that. I don't know if you saw it, but we did a closing at Jaymie's house with Jaymie and Al. The attorney came out in his car, and we did the closing on top of her car. We had to step away from each other. One had to come sign. Then her husband had to come. She stepped away, and her husband had to sign. Life is random right now.
Yeah. So that's one thing I've learned, is that shout out to all the hairdressers. I will not be quitting my day job. It's not good news. So I learned that. Don't give anybody haircuts. And I've also learned that I think people are stronger than they're giving themselves credit for. I hear a lot from different moms in this position, from, patients and friends and, family, and it's hitting the mark now. Like, we're looking at 8 weeks, something like that, between the North and now the South friends that I have. And we don't want to be doing this, right? Like, it's all new territory for all of us.
Yeah.
And so many people are saying, I can't do it, but you actually are doing it. So you may not want to do it, but we're doing it. And so I think people are really not recognizing their actual strength, that each day they're getting up, they're homeschooling, they're working or looking for work or whatever it is each and every day. So I think one of the things I've learned is that people are not recognizing their strength.
Oh, that's a good share.
Very good share.
What do you think your thoughts are on the transition going back on our, as we get closer to COVID coming to a release on stay orders and kind of normalizing yourself and your family back into the non-quarantine lifestyle? Have you thought of what that transition is going to be like?
I have no clue.
No clue.
I mean, I think about it every day.
Yeah.
Because, there's periods of time where you're just like, I have to feel, you want to bust out. You're ready to go. I don't know, the days of just wandering around Target seem so glorious now, little things, going to your hairdresser and not worrying about leaving sick and God forbid infecting your family or other things. I have no idea how it's going to work. I have not. I listen to all the reports and all of the things, but I don't actually know. And I think that's another really important lesson that we're learning during this time, is that we don't know. And so we need to be flexible. And so I'm hearing tons of too much this, not enough that, I've done this too much. We're all just trying to figure it out. So if your kid's watching too much TV on Monday and Tuesday, maybe Thursday, Friday, they're not. It's all going to come in shifting and being flexible back and forth. And the same thing I re-entering the community once it's safe.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one. I wish I did.
Does it give you anxiety, or is it fear based, or is it more of just uncertainty?
I mean, I think there's fear for everybody. I think there's anxiousness for everybody. I work really hard on making a choice not to let it rule me.
Cool.
Because if I do, I'll be sitting in my room in a puddle of tears, right? Like everybody, I mean, I shouldn't say everybody, but I feel like most people have some sort of like, oh, if I do this, what will happen? Or how do I handle this? But I like to try to have faith that everybody's trying to do their best. And maybe that's a little Pollyanna or like too optimistic, but that's what I shoot for.
So you're in South Carolina, and their release was last week, right, on the stay order? You're in the first phase, I believe, right now, which is just going to be general retail stores. All barbers, I think, are opening up next weekend.
Yeah, I think that was last week.
Yeah. So when do you think Al will have his first poker game?
Ask never. No, I don't know.
Depends on how readily available the testing is, Mario.
That's true.
Like,
before you step through the door, you have to be tested.
Like truly, like it's a thing. Like, how will you resume those things? I don't actually know the answer, and I don't actually know when a clear cut answer comes, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, the reason why we started this cast, I'm sure you're somewhat aware, is we like to talk about screw-ups that became build-ups in our lifestyle. And whether it be our personal lives or professional lives, it can be a long, long time ago or not too long ago. Do you mind sharing with everybody and ourselves a little bit of a life lesson that you've had that you're willing to share?
Well, I already shared don't give haircuts, so there's that one. But I think preparation is one of them, actually. So I was thinking about this question, knowing the background of the show. And I was thinking back to in graduate school when I got out and got my first, maybe it wasn't my first interview, but doing the degree that I did, it was really hard to get a job, like in the community without a license, right? So you have to earn all of these clinical hours, then you get a license, and then suddenly people want to give you a job. But people don't want to give you a job until you earn the hours and get the license, right? So you see how that goes. You have to get the experience, but nobody, that kind of situation. And I remember going on this interview, and I had done my internship in an inner city hospital, heard things that like nobody should ever want to hear, but I loved it. It was like such a great experience. Those kids were my favorite. So I was like super stoked when I got out. I was I have such great experience, all of this, right? Like, I mean, I handled so many different things that like you wouldn't necessarily know about, right? So I go to this interview, it's in the community, nobody wants this job. Like, it's the low end of the barrel. Like, nobody wants it, right? Wow. But I'm super pumped. I'm pumped. Like, I'm like, yes, I'm gonna do all the things, and Meanwhile, it's like a homeless shelter / mentally ill homeless shelter. Like, word on the street is everybody has lice and bed bugs. Like, there's continuous drug use and prostitution happen. I mean, like, it is not an easy job, and nobody wants it. And also, let me tell you, you're making like, I think it was, if I remember correctly, like $20,000.
Wow.
I mean, I wouldn't even be able to pay rent, right? So, but I was super stoked. I was like, Al, my husband, was like, I don't think this is a good job for you. Like, what are you gonna like, what are you gonna do? You're brand new. How are you going to handle these men and women, like all these questions, right? I was like, don't you worry, I got this. So I go to this interview that basically nobody wants, which is probably why I got the interview, right? And she's going through the interview with all these great questions, and I didn't prepare. It was like one of my first like real whatever. And I have such great experience behind me as internship wise, right? So I go to the interview and she says, tell me an emergency situation that you handled or that you couldn't handle, she said. And I was like, well, you don't ever say you can't handle something. Duh, like that's interview 101. So I said, there isn't a situation I can't handle. And she didn't give me the job. And her feedback was, you didn't have an example.
Wow.
And I said, well, at that point, so she told me this during the interview, I'm not going to give you this job. And I said, well, I have 100 emergencies. I worked in an inner city hospital where kids were being abused and dealing drugs and like having psychotic breaks in my care. Of course. And she said, but you didn't have an example. And then it became like, well, now I do, but whatever. So it didn't work, right? But I left that and I thought, you know, I could have left really like with a chip on my shoulder, like this is a silly job. Nobody wants it, blah, 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 whatever. But I didn't. I took it as a moment in my mind and I said, okay, you have these answers. And if you don't have them, find them. And so I never went to another interview without them. And so I think that's one of the things, right? So especially during now, like prepare, don't panic, because panicking doesn't help anyone, and preparation, I think, is key.
Wow, that's huge. Great share. I like that. That was good stuff right there.
Yeah. It was a tough time then.
I mean, you let go. I mean, they literally didn't give you a $20,000 job. That's just mean.
Yeah. I like wonder who they ended up hiring, but
I don't know. You probably need to write that lady and be like, thank you so much. I really owe you more than you know.
Right. I mean, it was going to be a tough job. I was like, the title literally was like supervisor. I was going to have to wear a pager like 24/7. But look, like the other thing too is like, sometimes you're going to, like, had I gotten the job, I think there would have been a lesson in that too, right? Sometimes you have to do things that you don't necessarily want to do, but it's a starting point. Absolutely. And then you figure it out from there, right? So I wasn't too good to turn it away. I was like, when I tell you I was pumped, I was pumped. I was like, yeah, I'm going to like be a supervisor. I'm going to have like 5 other people who don't want this job either. This is going to be amazing. Like I'm going to rock this like facility. And then I didn't get the job. So it kind of stunk, but it is what it is. And I grew from it. So I think those 2 things, like prepare for things that you don't even think you want to do, and then figure it out.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, let me think as we get closer to closing here, what are 2, I love to ask for 2s. What are 2 really cool things that, since you're so new to the Charlotte area, that up until COVID, what are 2 really cool things that you like the most about Charlotte compared to the Jersey area that you moved from? And you better find 2.
and you might be looking at them.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hey.
No, I think, well, having old friends here is certainly really fun, and having our kids get to know each other, that's like a totally different cool thing. I value that a lot. I love that. I'm gonna say I want the weather again.
There we go.
And there are some things. There are. I'm thinking. The people are very nice. The people are very nice. And I'm trying to really think what we've even like actually had time to do, because we moved here late July, started school in August, and you kind of hit the ground running with 3 kids, trying to figure out where your local grocery store is and like different food and, you know, delivery things. That still is a work in progress. I don't necessarily.
Well, how about this? What would you change if it was in your control? What would you change about this area?
Well, I'd like to be closer to the beach. It's like a genie in a bottle kind of situation, where like
you can't change that about Charlotte. You can't bring the ocean here.
You have to change. I don't know.
You asked, yeah.
Is it 3? Is it like a 3-wish situation?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one though. We'll go with the beach. I don't know. Like some people would say, I would change the traffic, which is definitely not a good argument based on where you came from. Or you can say you would change the rules of who builds gas stations where they need to build gas stations. Like that would be a change, right? So some things like that.
Don't even get started on that one. Like worthy. I can't even begin.
I know.
The traffic here is kind of horrendous, to be honest. I would change that. I don't like it. That's annoying.
In too crowded, or too slow, or just don't know how to drive?
All of the above. Literally, it's like they've taken every terrible driver and dumped them all into one spot and was like, have at it.
I think we all from the southern areas say the exact same thing about the Northeasterners. They're like, wait, who taught these people how to drive?
Oh, if you go? Yeah, I don't know. Look, like, I don't know who's behind the wheel anymore, right? I don't know if you're a New Yorker, a Georgian, a South Floridian. All I know is that sometimes I am like, what in the world are you doing? And why are you doing it at that rate?
Oh my goodness.
They also drive really close. Food, probably. I would love more delivery places.
Right. Wow. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on. I do miss hanging out with you guys, and I'm sure Chad and we both can speak for the same. Would love to get together as soon as we possibly can. But really, I appreciate you jumping on and talking to everybody and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
But tell Al, give the kids a hey, and we will possibly get together as soon as we can.
Yes. Bye,
Cool.
guys.
Bye.
Great seeing you, Jaymie.
See ya.
Bye.